He had everything, yet felt nothing. Noel Hartley, tech billionaire, media darling, the man everyone wanted a minute with, stood in the middle of the city's most luxurious rooftop soiree, surrounded by dazzling gowns, clinking glasses, and polished smiles. And yet, all he could think about was how empty it all felt. The laughter was too rehearsed, the compliments too calculated. Every conversation drifted toward yachts, custom watches, and vacations that sounded more like power plays than memories. He was just about to slip out the side door when it happened. A sharp voice shattered the glossy surface of the night. "What the hell?" Heads turned. The music died. Near the grand entrance, a man in a blinding white suit, Harold Montrose, a name that could shake banks, stood frozen, drenched in red punch. The liquid soaked through his shirt, staining his image of perfection. And in front of him, a girl in worn sneakers, holding a delivery bag that now looked absurdly out of place. Her name tag read, Claire. She stood stunned, her fingers fumbling for a napkin, her voice trembling as she tried to clean the mess she'd made. "I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry." Laughter rippled through the crowd, the kind that stings more than silence. Who even let her in? Probably thought she could deliver fries to a gala. Claire's cheeks flushed with heat. She opened her mouth to explain, but the shame was louder than her voice. "It was the app," she finally managed. "It set me to the wrong floor. I'm just here for a delivery." Harold scowled, brushing uselessly at the crimson stain on his lapel. "Get her out of here. Now." Before she could react, a guard appeared at her side, gripping her arm with no trace of kindness. "You don't belong here." She tried to pull away. "Please, this is just a mistake." And then, just as the crowd turned away, ready to dismiss her entirely, a calm voice cut through the tension. "Let her go." Silence fell. The guard paused. All eyes turned as Noel Hartley, the man people only dared to approach with rehearsed pitches and perfect smiles, stepped forward. He didn't look at Harold. He didn't ask for permission. He walked straight to Claire. "What's your name?" he asked. She blinked, still trying to find her footing. "Claire Bennett. I work for Mama Rosie's diner. I was just delivering a meal, that's all." Noel tilted his head, studying her. "Mama Rosie's? Do you serve that Southern-style mac and cheese?" Claire blinked. "Yeah, my grandma's recipe. I help out when we're short on hands." And for the first time that evening, Noel smiled. A real one, not the kind used for press photos. "It's the best thing I've eaten in months." He paused, then said something no one expected. "I've been looking for a cook." Claire stared at him. The room collectively held its breath. "I'll pay you 3 times what you make delivering food," he added, like it was the most natural offer in the world. Claire's eyes widened. 3 times what she earned? That would change everything. But then she thought of her grandmother, alone in that tiny kitchen, hands worn from years of stirring and seasoning. And so, without thinking, Claire folded her arms and said the first thing that came to her mind. 5 times. The room gasped. Even Harold dropped his stained napkin. Noel raised an eyebrow. And then, he smiled again. "You're surprisingly bold," Noel said, half smiling. "You always drive a hard bargain." Claire didn't flinch. "I've got bills to pay." He laughed, not mockingly but with a trace of admiration. 4 times your pay," he countered. 4.5. He squinted, amused. "Is this how you negotiate everything?" "Only when I'm desperate," she admitted with a shrug. The crowd, still frozen from the scene moments ago, now watched in stunned silence. Harold Montrose looked ready to explode. "Noel, seriously? Are you really hiring this girl?" But Noel wasn't paying attention to anyone else. His gaze was fixed on Claire, and then that slight smirk again. "Deal." Claire blinked. "Wait. What?" "You start tomorrow." Gasps swept across the room. Laughter, whispers, stares. Claire looked down at her stained apron, then around at the glittering gowns and polished shoes. She'd just come to drop off a dinner order, and somehow walked out with a new job. And not just any job, one working for the city's most unpredictable billionaire. What could possibly go wrong? The next morning, Claire woke up still half convinced she'd dreamed the whole thing. Her phone buzzed. No news alerts, no prank texts. It was real. She sat up, blinking at the ceiling. Did I seriously agree to work for Noel Hartley? From the kitchen came the sound of oil sizzling in a pan. "Claire, breakfast." Her grandmother called from down the hall. Claire pulled herself out of bed and padded into the small, warm kitchen of Mama Rosie's diner, where the scent of fried potatoes and herbs always reminded her of childhood. Her grandmother, apron tied tight, was flipping the first batch of hash browns for the morning deliveries. Without turning around, she asked casually, "So, how was that fancy party?" Claire poured herself coffee and slumped into a chair. "Oh, I spilled juice on a millionaire, got dragged out by security, and apparently now I work for Noel Hartley." The spatula froze midair. "You what?" Claire cringed. "Yeah, he offered me 5 times what I make here, but only part-time. I said yes." Her grandmother returned to her cooking slowly, processing. "And do you trust him?" Claire sipped her coffee. "He eats our mac and cheese every week. If he were a creep, he'd have kidnapped me by now." Her grandmother chuckled softly, shaking her head. "Well, go on then. But if he gives you trouble, just let me know. I still have that rolling pin." Claire laughed, stood up, and straightened her hoodie. "Wish me luck. Hopefully I don't break anything on my first day." The Hartley Tower was even more imposing up close. Claire stepped into the lobby, where the air conditioning blasted like a wind tunnel and everyone looked like they'd walked out of a luxury fashion catalog. Polished shoes clicked on marble floors, voices murmured into wireless earpieces, and not a single coffee cup was from a gas station. Claire adjusted the strap of her worn bag and made her way to the front desk. The receptionist, sleek, sharp-eyed, gave her a once-over. "Can I help you?" Claire cleared her throat. "I'm Claire, the new cook, for Mr. Hartley." There was a pause, long enough for Claire to feel like she'd made the whole thing up. Then the receptionist picked up the phone. "Mr. Hartley, your new chef is here." After a short reply, she pointed toward the elevator. "Top floor." Claire took a breath and stepped inside. As the elevator doors opened, she expected stainless steel appliances and strict professionalism. What she found was something else entirely. Noel's private kitchen was a quiet sanctuary of elegance, sunlight pouring in through high windows, white marble counters gleaming, a spacious island in the center like a stage. And leaning against that island, arms crossed, was Noel. "You took your time." Claire stepped in, eyes wide. "I got lost 3 times, but hey, I made it." He smirked and gestured toward the counter where fresh ingredients were already laid out. "Good. Let's see if you can actually cook." She narrowed her eyes. "You didn't test that before hiring me?" He grinned. "Nope. Felt like a gamble worth taking." Claire rolled up her sleeves. "Well, hope you're ready for Southern comfort food done right." "If it's terrible," Noel said, leaning casually against the counter, "I'll just fire you and move on." Claire arched an eyebrow. "Was that a challenge?" He smirked. "You can take it that way." She rolled up her sleeves slowly, a glint of mischief in her eyes. "All right then, let's see who regrets this first." With that, Claire got to work, her hands moving with familiar rhythm as she reached for the ingredients. She decided to go with something simple, something that came from memory more than recipe. Her grandmother's skillet noodles with pan-seared veggies and a splash of soy. Comfort food, the kind that spoke without trying. She could feel Noel watching her. Not hovering, just watching. You're staring a little too much," she muttered, tossing the vegetables into the sizzling pan. "I'm observing the process," he replied smoothly, trying to figure out if I hired a chef or a street performer. Claire rolled her eyes. "Or maybe just making sure I don't burn your fancy countertops." But inside, the nerves were creeping in. So much so that, mid-conversation, she poured far too much soy sauce into the pan. The sharp, salty aroma hit her immediately. Her stomach dropped. "Oh no." Noel's eyes narrowed. "What was that?" "Nothing," she said quickly, trying to salvage it, adding a splash of broth, a squeeze of lemon, anything to soften the taste. But the mistake had already settled into the noodles. Noel served himself a small plate, picked up a pair of chopsticks, and took a bite. He chewed slowly, too slowly. Claire braced herself. He looked up, expression unreadable. "Tell me, Claire, have you ever been to the ocean?" Yeah? Because this tastes like you cooked it in one." She groaned. "Fantastic. First day and I already ruined lunch." Noel set the chopsticks down thoughtfully. "It's a rookie mistake, but honestly..." He leaned back against the counter. "Still better than most of the overpriced nonsense I've had this year." Claire crossed her arms. "So, I passed?" He chuckled. "With one condition. Don't poison you?" "Exactly." A little while later, as Claire wiped down the marble countertops, a man in a sharply tailored suit strode into the kitchen without knocking. His face was all angles, serious, tight, unreadable. "Mr. Hartley, we need to talk." Noel sighed. "Claire, wrap up here and meet me in my office." She nodded, watching the two disappear down the hallway. Alone in the gleaming kitchen, Claire leaned against the counter. The smell of soy sauce still lingered faintly in the air. How had her life changed this fast? 24 hours ago, she was serving takeout boxes from a tiny corner diner. Now she was cooking in the private kitchen of a billionaire and negotiating her salary like she actually knew what she was doing. She looked around the space one last time, making sure everything was spotless. A tiny swell of pride rose in her chest. If someone had told me yesterday this would happen, I would have laughed. She dried her hands, straightened her posture, and walked down the long hallway. When she reached Noel's office, the door was slightly ajar. Inside, he stood with arms crossed, listening as the suited man spoke in a sharp, clipped tone. "This isn't the time for distractions, Noel. You've got a merger pending with Sterling Group. You can't afford to waste time hiring street cooks." Claire froze. "Street cook?" Without hesitation, she pushed the door open and stepped inside. "If I'm a street cook," she said coolly, "then you're just a guy who shuffles spreadsheets. We all start somewhere." The man blinked, caught off guard. "And you are?" "His chef," she replied, "and apparently the only one in the room who knows how to handle salt." Noel suppressed a smile. "Claire, this is Paul, my financial advisor." She gave him a quick once-over. "Paul? Nice. Maybe next time, skip the insults." Paul scoffed, turning back to Noel. "Are you seriously taking this situation seriously?" Noel shrugged. "Her food is better than any five-star place in the city. I'll take results over resumes." Claire raised her chin. Paul folded his arms. "Then prove it. Introduce your little chef to your business partners. Let's see if she holds up when it matters." Claire blinked. "Wait, what?" Noel looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. Curiosity, challenge, maybe even a little pride. "You know," he said, "that's not a bad idea." Claire's eyes widened. "What?" Claire asked, blinking. Paul leaned back, clearly satisfied. "Tomorrow night, Mr. Hartley is hosting a business dinner. Why don't you cook for the investors? If your food really is as impressive as he says, I'm sure they'll notice. And if it's not, well, I still get paid either way." Claire didn't even pause. "Sounds fair." Noel laughed under his breath. "She's got a point." Paul raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. Claire folded her arms. "Do I get to choose the menu?" Paul hesitated. "Well, typically these dinners lean toward more refined cuisine." "I wasn't hired to follow a script," she replied. "I was hired because my food speaks for itself." Noel turned to Paul. "I like that," Paul sighed. "Just don't poison anyone." Claire smirked. "No promises." The next morning, Claire arrived at Hartley Tower before the sun had fully risen, carrying a basket full of fresh ingredients. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than usual. In the kitchen, Noel was already there, sipping coffee, sleeves rolled up. He glanced at the bags. "Planning to feed the entire building?" "6 investors. Plus you, and I always make extra. It's a habit." He pulled an apple from the basket, inspecting it. "So what's on the menu?" Claire leaned against the counter, thinking. Something familiar, something real. "We start with shrimp fritters. Golden, crunchy, light. Then fried rice with scallions and ginger. Sweet and sour beef. Slow-cooked, sticky, tangy. And handmade noodles for the final dish." Noel raised an eyebrow. "You're serving your grandma's noodles to millionaires?" She straightened. "They're going to remember it. That's all that matters." He bit into the apple, grinning. "You're stubborn. And good at what I do." Evening fell, and with it came the dinner. Claire was deep in prep. Steam rising from pans, the scent of garlic and soy drifting through the kitchen. Through the glass wall, she caught glimpses of tailored suits and polished shoes. Paul was among them, sipping wine and flashing his usual smug half-smile toward the kitchen. Claire rolled her eyes and returned to her station. Noel appeared beside her. "Nervous?" "Are you?" he laughed. "Touché." The dinner began. First out were the shrimp fritters, golden, crisp, with a hint of lemon. Then came the fried rice, laced with herbs and fresh vegetables. The sweet and sour beef followed, rich, balanced, comforting. And finally, the steaming bowl of noodles, tossed with sautéed vegetables, soy glaze, and Claire's signature finish, a quiet tribute to her grandmother. From the kitchen, Claire watched. At first the guests were stoic. Neutral expressions, polite bites. But then, something changed. A smile here, a raised eyebrow there. Someone leaned in and whispered. Another cleared his throat and turned to Noel. "This is unexpected," one of them said. "I've never had noodles like this," another added, nodding slowly. Across the room, Paul looked like he'd bitten into a lemon. Noel caught Claire's eye through the glass wall. He gave her a slow, proud smile. She blinked, surprised. She hadn't just survived the night. She'd made them feel something. And for the first time, she began to think, maybe this job wasn't just temporary. Maybe it was something more. The next morning, Claire returned to Hartley Tower with her usual basket, but things felt different. Whispers followed her down the hallway. "That's her. The cook from last night. How did she get this job? I heard Mr. Hartley's interested in her." Claire blinked. "Interested?" She shook her head and walked faster, gripping the bag tighter. She wasn't here for rumors. She was here to work. But as she entered Noel's private kitchen, she froze. The counters were covered with takeout boxes, each one from high-end restaurants, delicate plating, truffle shavings, foam garnishes, and Noel, standing in the middle of it all, arms crossed, waiting. By the counter, Noel sat with a fork in hand, staring at his plate like it might be a punishment. Claire dropped her bag beside the sink and crossed her arms. "Okay, what exactly is going on here?" Noel sighed and set the fork down. "Paul insisted I try dishes from top-rated chefs around the city, something about refining my palate." Claire walked over, lifted the lid of one of the pristine boxes, and read the label aloud. "LeBlanc." She raised an eyebrow. "Ah, yes, the place that charges $500 for something that looks like it belongs in a flower arrangement." She glanced at the delicate plate, an abstract drizzle of sauce, a lonely strip of beef balanced on a microgreen. "This isn't food," she muttered. "This is an art exhibit." Noel chuckled, clearly relieved. Finally, someone who gets it. Claire picked up a fork, stabbed a bite-sized portion of the masterpiece and tasted it. She made a face, seasoned cardboard with a hint of pretension. Noel laughed fully now. "Exactly." Claire looked from the food back to him. "You had actual good food here. And you let all this go to waste just to impress your financial advisor?" He raised his hands in surrender. "Blame Paul, not me." Claire rolled her eyes and started unpacking her own ingredients. "If it's refinement they want, I'll show them what real taste is." Noel watched her curiously. "So you're cooking out of pure spite?" She grinned. "Always." Soon, the aroma of seared chicken and warm spices filled the room. Noel leaned forward as she plated a dish of golden fried rice, topped with her signature sauce. She set the bowl in front of him with quiet confidence. He didn't hesitate, picking up a pair of chopsticks and taking a bite. His eyes closed briefly. Then a soft sigh. "This is good." Claire crossed her arms. "Better than your little gold leaf cardboard?" He smiled. "No comparison." But before she could offer a witty comeback, the kitchen door swung open. A tall blonde woman entered, elegant, polished, and very much uninvited. She walked in like she owned the marble floors beneath her heels. "Noel, darling, there you are." She stopped short when she saw Claire. Her eyes narrowed, just slightly. "And who might this be?" Noel didn't even look up. "Claire, my personal chef." The woman let out a high-pitched laugh. "A chef? Since when do you need a chef?" Claire met her gaze, unbothered. "Since now." The blonde blinked at her boldness, clearly unused to being challenged. Noel sighed and finally stood. "Claire, this is Miranda. She's my ex." Claire raised an eyebrow. "Lucky you." Miranda let out another laugh, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, sweetie, I wouldn't use the word ex. I'm still very much part of Noel's life." Claire gave her a cool smile. "Well, I hope you like fried rice because I'm part of it now, too." Noel rubbed his temples, clearly growing tired. "Miranda, what do you want?" She sauntered closer and placed a manicured hand on his arm. "Dinner tonight. LeBlanc, just like old times." Claire bit her lip to keep from laughing. Noel exhaled. "I have a meeting." "Then tomorrow?" He glanced between the two women, then back at Miranda. "I don't need to go out anymore. I have a chef now." For a moment, Miranda's smile faltered. Then she recovered. "Well, I certainly hope your new chef is very talented, because nothing tops dinner at LeBlanc." Claire leaned on the counter, voice calm. "If you'd like, I could prepare something just for you." Miranda looked her up and down with practiced disdain. "Oh, honey, I doubt you're capable." Claire smiled sweetly. "Only one way to find out." Noel struggled to hold back a grin as Miranda threw him one last sharp look before turning on her heel and striding out, her perfume lingering like a final word. Claire turned to him. Has she always been like that? Noel smirked. Worse. Well, good luck with that. He returned to his bowl, shaking his head. Thanks, I'm gonna need it. Claire took a sip of orange juice and leaned against the counter, a quiet smile tugging at her lips. For the first time in days, she wasn't just holding her ground, she was owning the room. Claire leaned against the counter, sipping juice as she watched Noel finish the last bite of fried rice. Even now, she couldn't quite figure him out. He was a billionaire, surrounded by power players, polished smiles, and deals worth more than she could imagine. Yet here he was, joking about noodles, dodging his ex, and complimenting her cooking with the sincerity of a regular guy. And that was dangerous, because the more normal he seemed, the easier it was to forget that this was just a job. She kept reminding herself, don't get attached. The next morning, Claire walked into Hartley Tower with a grocery bag in hand and an unexpected sense of calm. In just a few days, she had slipped into a strange rhythm, one that involved navigating luxury elevators, avoiding gossiping assistants, and cooking breakfast for the city's most eccentric CEO. What she didn't expect was raised voices echoing from Noel's office. She paused in the doorway. Inside, Noel stood casually with arms crossed while Paul paced in front of his desk, clearly agitated. This is insane, Noel, Paul snapped, slapping a newspaper down on the desk. I think it sounds like fun, Noel replied with a smirk. Claire raised an eyebrow. Am I interrupting a midlife crisis? Paul threw up his hands. Please, you tell him. This idea is ridiculous. Claire stepped forward, peeking at the newspaper headline. Citywide Culinary Charity Challenge. The best chefs compete for a cause. She blinked. Wait, you want to compete in a cooking event? Noel offered a small, unapologetic grin. Why not? Paul groaned. Because you're a CEO, not a chef. Claire crossed her arms. Be honest, Noel. Can you even cook an egg? He tilted his head thoughtfully. I once made instant noodles. Paul looked like he might combust. This is going to be a PR disaster. Claire bit her lip to keep from laughing. Well, then I guess he better find a really good teacher. Noel raised an eyebrow. Are you volunteering? If you promise not to set the place on fire. The next few days were chaos. Claire quickly discovered that Noel Hartley, the man who managed billion-dollar ventures, was completely useless in the kitchen. Day 1. He tried to cook a steak and nearly lit the pan on fire. Why is there so much smoke? He yelled, waving a dish towel. Because you turned the heat up to volcano, Claire shouted, rescuing the pan. Day 2. He attempted to chop onions and ended up nicking his finger. Oh, okay, that's it. I'm suing onions. Day 3. Claire gave up and said, let's try something simple. A sandwich. He nodded and promptly slathered half a jar of mayonnaise onto one slice of bread. I like mayo. Paul stopped by once or twice, always leaving with a dramatic sigh. This is going to be a disaster, he muttered. Claire, on the other hand, wasn't giving up. He might be hopeless now, she said under her breath, watching Noel fumble with a spatula, but even disasters can learn. Noel looked at her, amused. Do you really believe in me that much? She grinned. Not really, but I do enjoy proving people wrong. Then came competition day. The ballroom buzzed with reporters, flashing cameras, and long tables covered in fresh ingredients. The city's top chefs stood at their stations like warriors ready for battle. Noel, dressed in a crisp apron with his sleeves rolled up, looked oddly confident. Claire watched from behind the scenes, arms folded, her heart caught somewhere between panic and pride. The rules were simple. Each contestant had 1 hour to prepare an original dish. The timer started. Knives hit chopping boards. Pans sizzled. Noel grabbed his ingredients and got to work. Was he still a disaster? Absolutely. But now, he was a focused disaster. She watched him chop, still slow, still careful, but precise. Claire watched from the sidelines, heart tight in her chest as Noel moved through the last steps of the competition. He was still slow, careful, but this time there was no chaos, no flying onions, no plumes of smoke. She watched him stir the sauce with quiet focus, plate the dish with balance, and for once, apply the mayonnaise with restraint. He's really doing this. When the timer rang, every competitor stepped back. The judges began making their rounds, sampling each dish, scribbling notes, murmuring to one another behind polite hands. Claire held her breath as they reached Noel's station. One judge lifted a fork. A bite. Silence. Then the second. Then the third. A pause settled over the room, the kind of silence that stretches seconds into hours. Then one of the judges wiped his mouth and turned to Noel. "Mr. Hartley," he said, voice calm but curious, "I must admit, this is unexpectedly delightful." Claire let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. In the back of the room, Paul's eyes widened. "How?" he muttered to himself. The second judge chimed in. "Excellent flavor balance, thoughtful execution." The third simply nodded in agreement. Noel gave a small, almost sheepish smile and turned slightly toward Claire. She gave him a silent thumbs up. He didn't win first place. That honor went to a culinary veteran with decades of experience. But Noel came in second, and for someone who just days ago had nearly set a skillet on fire, second place wasn't just a success, it was a statement. After the crowd had cleared, Noel found Claire by the edge of the hall, arms crossed, a small, proud smile on her face. "So, teacher," he said, grinning, "did I pass?" "With flying colors," she replied. He stepped a little closer. His expression shifted, softer now, more serious. "There's something I've been meaning to ask." Claire raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" He hesitated, just for a second, then said, "How would you feel about opening a restaurant together?" She blinked. "Wait, what?" "I'm serious," he said, a smile tugging at his lips. "Your food deserves more than this kitchen. And honestly, I think I'm starting to enjoy this whole cooking thing." She studied his face, trying to find the punchline. But there wasn't one. And for the first time, Claire wondered if this wasn't just the end of some light-hearted challenge. Maybe it was the beginning of something entirely new. The next morning, she walked into Hartley Tower expecting the usual. Kitchen prep, a sarcastic comment or two from Paul, and Noel asking her if onions were still evil. Instead, she found a stack of documents spread across the massive conference table. "Morning, chef," Noel greeted her, that same sly smile in place. Claire frowned at the papers. "What's all this?" He folded his arms. "Potential locations for the restaurant." Her jaw dropped. "You're actually serious?" He pulled out a chair and motioned for her to sit. "Not only serious, I've already started scouting. I've got 3 options." She gave a disbelieving laugh. "Noel, this is crazy. I'm just a girl who learned to cook from her grandma." He shrugged. "And I'm a billionaire who once thought mayonnaise belonged on everything. Sounds like we balance each other out." Claire shook her head. "You really don't know what you're doing, do you?" "No," he admitted, smiling, "but every good investment starts with an idea, and I've got one." Slowly, cautiously, she sat beside him. "Okay, let's say I entertain this madness. Where do you want to open it?" He pointed to 3 locations on a map. One downtown, one in a fancy neighborhood, and one just outside your hometown. She froze. "Wait, near my community?" Noel nodded. "I thought it would be a good way to give back. Besides, your kind of cooking, real, honest, nostalgic, it belongs where people understand it." She studied him. "Was this your idea or Paul's?" He chuckled. "Definitely mine. Paul thinks it's a terrible investment, which probably means it's the right one." Claire bit her lip, unsure whether to feel excited or terrified. "Are you actually serious about this?" Noel met her gaze, all playfulness gone. 100%. And suddenly, the kitchen felt like a stepping stone. She looked down at the map, then at her hands, the same ones that had chopped, stirred, and seasoned her way through years of quiet work. This was no longer just about food. It was about building something that belonged to her. To both of them. It was a huge risk. And Claire knew it. Noel could see the hesitation in her eyes. He leaned his elbows on the table, voice softer than usual. "What's holding you back?" She hesitated before answering. "My grandmother. I can't just leave her alone at the diner." He tilted his head as if the answer was simple. "Then bring her with you." Claire blinked. "Just like that?" "Why not?" Noel replied. "She's an incredible cook. You are too. It could be a family business." Claire was speechless. He smiled gently. "Come on, Claire. What do you have to lose?" She took a slow, steady breath. "Fine," she said at last, "but I want equal say in every decision, half the power, no silent partner nonsense." "Deal. And no ridiculous prices. This place should be for everyone, not just the people who eat gold flakes on their salads." He raised an eyebrow. "You really do know how to negotiate." She smirked. "I learned from the best." The first thing Claire did was rush home. she burst through the back entrance of Mama Rosie's diner, the smell of fried potatoes in the air, and found her grandmother calmly folding clean aprons by the sink. "Grandma, you're not going to believe this." The older woman looked up with a gentle smile. "Try me." Claire sat down breathless. "Noel, my boss, he wants to open a restaurant with me, near the village." Her grandmother blinked. "With you?" Claire nodded, still a little breathless from the thrill of it. "And he wants you there too." Her grandmother's smile softened, but her hands never stopped folding. "That's quite the offer. But I won't do it unless you're with me," Claire said quickly. "I need you. This place only works because of you." The old woman reached across the table, taking Claire's hands in hers. "I'll always be here for you, my girl. But maybe it's time you started something of your own." A lump rose in Claire's throat. Her grandmother was right. Maybe she was ready. The days that followed were a blur of blueprints and brainstorms. Claire and Noel debated everything, from menu philosophy to the restaurant's name. "It has to be affordable," Claire insisted, "but without compromising on quality," Noel countered. "Agreed." He suggested taste of home. Claire wrinkled her nose. "Too vague." She thought for a moment, then her eyes lit up. "What about flavors of the village?" Noel paused, then nodded slowly. "I like that." Piece by piece, the dream began to take shape, but on the eve of signing the restaurant contract, when everything seemed within reach, the past came knocking. Literally. The bell above the door at Mama Rosie's jingled, and Claire turned, only to see her standing there. Miranda. Perfect blonde curls, cold smile. Heels clicking on the worn linoleum as she stepped inside without an invitation. "We need to talk," she said smoothly. Claire folded her arms. "I don't have anything to say to you." Miranda's eyes swept the small kitchen with quiet disdain. "So this is where you work. That explains a lot." Claire sighed. "What do you want?" Miranda stepped closer, her tone shifting, silk with a razor edge. "I just came to offer a little advice. Be careful." Claire narrowed her eyes. "Careful of what?" Miranda adjusted her hair, feigning concern. "You may think Noel's being generous, but men like him don't give without expecting something in return." Claire's jaw tightened. "What exactly are you implying?" Miranda's voice dropped. "When he gets bored of the novelty, he'll move on, just like he always does." Claire took a step forward, her voice low and steady. "Funny. Looks like he got bored of you first." Miranda flushed crimson. "We'll see how long you last, sweetheart." And with a cloud of expensive perfume, she was gone. That night, Claire lay awake, Miranda's words echoing in her mind. What if it was all a phase? What if she was just another story Noel would one day forget? The next morning, she walked into his office, heart racing, resolve building, ready to ask, to confront, to protect herself. But before she could speak, Noel looked up from his desk, smiled, and said simply, "It's done. We're officially partners." Claire froze. There it was, signed, sealed, and now real. There was no turning back now. It would either be the beginning of something beautiful or a disaster in slow motion. Claire stared at the freshly signed contract in her hands. She was officially in business with a billionaire, and somehow that wasn't the most absurd part. They were opening a restaurant, together. It didn't take long for reality to set in. For someone who once claimed mayonnaise was a food group, Noel took the project surprisingly seriously. "We need a strong visual identity," he said, squinting at logo mock-ups on his laptop. Claire sat across from him, face buried in her hands. "Richard?" He didn't look up. "Something sleek but warm, modern but with a rustic undertone," she groaned. "This is a restaurant, not a tech startup." He finally glanced at her. "Branding matters." "Not more than the food," he smirked. "Fine. Let's focus on the food," she exhaled. "Thank you." But just as she allowed herself one deep breath, the door opened. Paul walked in, holding a folder thick enough to cause stress on sight. "We've got a problem." Claire closed her eyes. "Of course we do." Noel skimmed the folder while Paul explained. "The property needs more work than we thought. Electrical, plumbing, and there was a pigeon nest in the kitchen." Claire looked like she might faint. "A what?" "Also a leak in the ceiling, possibly two." Noel flipped another page, completely unfazed. "We can fix it. It'll just take time." Paul nodded. "And money." Claire narrowed her eyes. "How much money?" Noel said nothing. He scribbled something on a notepad and slid it across the table. Claire read the number and nearly fell out of her chair. "Are you insane?" Noel shrugged. "It's a necessary investment. With that kind of money, we could buy the whole town. Twice. Paul leaned against the wall, sipping coffee, clearly enjoying the scene. Claire took a long breath, trying to ground herself. What if we find a different location? Noel shook his head. This is the place. I'm sure of it. He crossed his arms, voice softening. Do you trust me? She froze. The room suddenly felt still. He wasn't asking as a CEO. He was asking as a partner. Claire sighed, then nodded reluctantly. Fine, but if this restaurant crashes, I'm coming back to haunt you. Noel laughed. I'll make sure there's coffee in the afterlife. And so began the chaos of construction. Claire spent every day on site, overseeing the work, arguing about tile colors and table placements. Noel tried to help. Noel, that paint is for the walls, not the counters. I think it adds contrast. You're not redecorating your penthouse. Put the brush down. Paul, ever the bystander, sipped his espresso from a safe distance. Honestly, I should be filming this. Noel tossed a paintbrush at him. It missed, barely, but slowly, bit by bit, the space began to take shape. And one evening, when the dust had settled and the lights were installed, Claire walked in and stood still. Her heart skipped. It was real. The warm lights, the wooden tables, the open kitchen, it looked like a dream she never dared to dream out loud. She turned to Noel, eyes shining. This is incredible, he smiled, and we're just getting started. The next step, building a team. And as expected, the arguments resumed. I want cooks from the village, Claire insisted. People who understand homemade food, who grew up in it. We also need someone with credentials, Noel said. A head chef with experience. Claire crossed her arms. I have experience. I mean, official qualifications. She stared at him. Oh sure, because a diploma teaches what my grandma's been perfecting for 50 years. Noel exhaled. That's not what I meant. Claire turned away, quietly fuming. She wasn't just defending her grandmother. She was defending everything she stood for. And somewhere deep down, maybe even a small part of herself. Claire folded her arms. Then let me build the team myself. Noel arched a brow. You're that confident? She smirked. Watch me. And so began the great recruitment quest. Claire went straight to the village where she'd grown up, where recipes were passed down by heart, not written on paper. Mr. Pedro, do you still make those spicy black beans? Mrs. Rosa, still looking for a part-time job? Hey Jamie, remember when you said you wanted to learn baking? I've got something better. Within a few days, she had a full kitchen crew. Not polished, not formally trained, but full of flavor and fight. When Noel walked into the dining room and saw them all standing there, a curious mix of aprons and wide-eyed wonder, he raised an eyebrow. How exactly did a billionaire and a village cook become business partners? Someone whispered. He chuckled. Claire nudged him. I bet you've never worked with people this real before. He smiled. Let's see if they can handle it. Opening day arrived faster than anyone expected. The town buzzed with excitement. Journalists hovered outside. A line stretched around the block. Claire, on the other hand, was on the verge of a meltdown. The sauce is wrong. Who burned the rice? Why is there sugar in the soy sauce? Noel walked into the kitchen, arms crossed casually. What's happening? Claire wiped sweat from her brow. Chaos. Absolute chaos. He placed his hands gently on her shoulders. Breathe. You've got this. She shook her head. How are you this calm? He looked her dead in the eye. Because you're the best cook I know. Just then, someone called out from the front. First order ready. Claire turned toward the counter, everything else momentarily forgotten. The restaurant came alive. The aroma of fresh spices filled the air. Plates flew out the door. Customers left smiling. Compliments came faster than the orders. From across the room, Noel watched quietly. Paul joined him, folding his arms. You really went all in on this? Noel nodded, eyes still on Claire. And it paid off. Paul gave him a look. It's not just about the restaurant, is it? Noel smirked, not answering. Of course not, Paul said, grinning. You're terrible at hiding it. That night, after the last customer left, Claire dropped into a chair, completely spent. Noel sat beside her. Still alive? She groaned. Barely. But you did it. Claire looked around the quiet restaurant, the echo of laughter still lingering in the walls, and for the first time she realized her life had changed forever. The weeks that followed were both magical and exhausting. The place was packed every day. Orders poured in, people raved, but that also meant Claire had no life outside the kitchen. One night, she slumped into a chair, apron-stained, hair wild. "I'm dying," she mumbled. Noel sipped his coffee, relaxed. "You wanted this, remember?" She glared at him through tired eyes. "I wanted a restaurant. I didn't want to become a zombie." He raised an eyebrow. "There's a solution, you know." "What? Clone me?" "Nope, hire more help." She blinked. "What?" Just then, the kitchen door opened. 3 new team members walked in, clean aprons, warm smiles, ready to work. Claire stared. "Who are they?" Noel leaned back, smug. "Our reinforcements." She stood, hands on her hips. "You hired new staff without telling me?" He smiled. "Consider it a gift." "Noel, I'm your partner. You can't just make decisions behind my back." He shrugged. "You were burning out. I fixed it." Claire opened her mouth to argue, but then paused. The truth was, she needed help, badly. She looked at the new hires, all capable, eager, and sighed. "Fine, you win this one." Noel raised his cup, as always. She rolled her eyes. "Don't get used to it." With the expanded team, the restaurant ran smoother, faster, even better. But success, as it turns out, comes with a new kind of trouble. Word was spreading, fast. Before long, their humble little eatery wasn't just feeding the village anymore. It was attracting food critics, influencers, and cameras. And Claire? She wasn't sure she liked being in the spotlight. Not one bit. Claire stared at her phone, horrified. "I didn't ask for this," she shouted, shoving the screen toward Noel. A video of her plating yakisoba had somehow gone viral, over 1 million views in less than 48 hours. The caption read, "The Billionaire's cook with the magic touch." Noel leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee, unfazed. "What happened this time?" She jabbed her finger at the screen. "This video, 1 million views, Noel. I'm not a brand, I'm just a cook." He chuckled. "A famous cook." Claire groaned, massaging her temples. "I just wanted to feed people, not end up on influencer pages." Noel walked over, gently took the phone from her hands, and met her eyes. "You know what this means?" "Enlighten me." "It means people love what you do. They see it, they feel it. That's not something to hide from." Claire opened her mouth to protest, but stopped. Because deep down, he was right. Just as things began to feel stable, the past came strutting in heels and designer sunglasses. Miranda. She waltzed into the restaurant like she still had a stake in the building. "Good morning, darlings," she cooed. Claire's stomach twisted. Noel, standing at the front counter, narrowed his eyes. "What do you want, Miranda?" She smiled sweetly. "Too sweet. Just came to see how you're doing. So much buzz lately. I figured I'd stop by." Claire crossed her arms. "You never show up without an agenda." Miranda feigned offense, then pulled out a golden envelope from her designer purse. "Well, now that you mention it, I'm organizing a charity dinner. Very exclusive. I'd love for your restaurant to cater it." Claire blinked. "You want us to cater your event?" "Business is business, right?" Miranda said, all teeth and red lipstick. Claire glanced at Noel, who looked deeply skeptical. "What kind of event?" "A fundraising gala. Big names, big exposure, great opportunity for your little restaurant." Claire hesitated. She knew Miranda wasn't trustworthy, but it was an opportunity. "What do you think?" she asked Noel quietly. He sighed. "I think she's a walking PR nightmare." Miranda rolled her eyes. "For God's sake, I'm offering you free publicity." Claire paused, then nodded. "We'll do it." Miranda grinned, victorious. "Wonderful." Noel gave her a warning look. "If you try anything, relax, darling. What could possibly go wrong?" In the days that followed, Claire and her team threw themselves into prep. Dozens of dishes, hours of testing, everything had to be flawless. But something about it didn't sit right. And then came the night of the event. The venue was grand. The decor sparkled. But from the moment they arrived, something felt off. Waitstaff avoided Claire's gaze. The event organizers barely spoke to her. Even the chef's name printed on the menu wasn't hers. Noel's phone buzzed. He answered. A pause. Then his face went cold. "What is it?" Claire asked. He looked at her, jaw tight. "Miranda set us up." "What? How?" "She told the guests the food came from another chef, a rival restaurant. She's using our food to boost their name." Claire felt her chest tighten. Anger replaced shock. "That snake." Noel turned to the staff. "Stop serving." But Claire shook her head. "No, I've got this." She walked toward the stage, heart pounding, blood rushing in her ears. Then she took the microphone. "Good evening." The music dimmed. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Miranda froze at the back of the room. "I hope you're enjoying the dinner tonight," Claire said evenly. Before dessert, I'd just like to share something. She looked out over the room, the polished guests, the expensive gowns, the champagne glasses midair. Every dish you've tasted tonight was prepared by my team from a restaurant called Flavors of the Village. And I'm proud to say, we did it with heart, not pretense. A wave of murmurs rippled through the crowd. Miranda went pale. So if you liked what you tasted, come find us. We're not in a glossy tower or a downtown hotspot. We're just a little place serving food that means something. She stepped back, handed the mic off, and walked off the stage to stunned silence. Then a slow, building applause. Noel was waiting for her backstage. That was amazing. Claire was still shaking. I just couldn't let her steal what we built. He looked at her, not like a partner, not like a boss, but with something else in his eyes. You didn't just protect it. You owned it. And in that moment, Claire knew. She was no longer just the cook. She was the soul of something real. The room buzzed with murmurs. Guests looked at one another, unsure of what to believe. Then Miranda stepped forward, voice shrill and shaking. This is a mistake. But Claire cut her off. If anyone here has doubts, she said clearly, feel free to come to the kitchen. I'll make a dish right now, in front of you. A beat of silence, then applause. Warm, unapologetic, unstoppable. Miranda stood frozen, rage in her eyes, lips pressed into a thin line. And Noel? He just smiled. She's incredible, he whispered to himself. That night, Claire and Noel left the gala victorious. Miranda had tried to humiliate them, to steal what they'd built, with grit and heart. But the only one who ended up exposed was her. As they stepped into the cool night air, Claire realized something for the first time. She and Noel didn't just run a restaurant. They were a team. In the days that followed, Flavors of the Village became more than a hidden gem. It became a sensation. Miranda's failed stunt only made them stronger. Newspapers, blogs, even food influencers began talking about them. Claire couldn't go to the market without someone pointing. It's the chef from Flavors of the Village. You have to teach me that recipe. Holding a bag of tomatoes, Claire gave a nervous smile and tried to keep walking. Beside her, Noel strolled with his hands in his pockets, grinning. You're getting famous. I didn't ask to get famous, Claire muttered, tossing a tomato into her basket. Too late now. She glared at him. This is all your fault. He raised an eyebrow. Mine? She pointed at him accusingly. You dragged me into this world of flashy people and viral videos. He laughed. Did I drag you, or did you walk in willingly? She opened her mouth to argue, paused, closed it again. Because deep down, he was right. With the restaurant booming, Noel had another idea. I want you to cook for a private dinner. Claire looked up. Define private. Just a handful of important people. He grinned. Business dinner. Intimate, but high stakes. She sighed. So, more rich people. Basically, she muttered. I don't know if my heart can take this. He laughed. You'll be fine. The dinner was held at the top floor of a 5-star hotel. Claire arrived early, ingredients in hand, instantly aware of how out of place she looked. The halls sparkled. The people shimmered. She muttered to herself, I do not belong in this world. But the moment she stepped into the kitchen, all that faded. In the kitchen, she belonged. She moved with confidence, slicing, stirring, plating with precision. While she worked, Noel mingled with guests. The atmosphere buzzed with curiosity. You really found a diamond in the rough, one executive said. That girl's got something rare. Noel simply smiled. I know. When the food was served, the room grew quiet. One by one, the guests tasted the dishes. The first to speak was an older man with silver hair. This is extraordinary. The others nodded. Claire watched from the corner, her heart swelling. She'd done it. But the moment of pride didn't last long. When Claire returned to the kitchen, she stopped dead in her tracks. A waiter was hovering over one of her pots, unscrewing a small bottle, about to pour something into the sauce. Hey, what do you think you're doing? The man's eyes widened. He bolted. Come back here. But he was gone. Claire grabbed the bottle. Her stomach turned. It was meant to ruin the dish. She rushed to Noel. We need to talk. One look at her face, and he knew it was serious. She showed him the bottle. Someone tried to poison the sauce. Noel's expression shifted, calm replaced with fury. Did you see who? Not clearly, but he ran the moment I caught him. Noel nodded, his jaw tight. I'll handle it. And for the first time, Claire saw something in him that wasn't businesslike or charming. It was personal, protective, furious. For her. The dinner, thankfully, ended without incident. The guests left happy, unaware of the sabotage that had almost unfolded behind the scenes. But Claire could feel the tension in Noel's shoulders. This wasn't over. Someone had tried to hurt what they built, and that was war. Claire slumped into the chair, her whole body aching. "I just want to sleep for a week." Noel didn't say anything at first. He just looked at her, really looked at her. And without overthinking it, he placed his hand gently over hers. "You did an incredible job tonight." Claire blinked, caught off guard. Then she blushed. "Thank you," Noel smiled. "And now, I think we've earned a break." She laughed, a little breathless. "Finally, a sensible idea coming from you." But the next morning arrived heavy with tension. Claire stepped into the restaurant early, hoping the quiet would help clear her mind. But the thoughts from the night before clung to her like fog. What if I hadn't caught that waiter in time? What if that dinner had been ruined? What if this all falls apart? She couldn't let that happen. She wouldn't. As she moved through the kitchen, restocking shelves and checking the prep lists, she heard footsteps behind her. Noel. His face was serious. "We need to talk." Claire didn't look up. "If this is about last night, I'm already at maximum stress levels." "It's something else," he said quietly. She turned and froze. He was holding out his phone. "What is this?" On the screen was a news headline. Bold and brutal. "Scandal rocks rising restaurant. Head chef accused of fraud." Claire's face stared back from the photo, wide-eyed and taken off guard. Her breath caught. "What? Who would write this?" Noel exhaled slowly. "I'm still looking into it, but someone's trying to destroy us, and they're not subtle about it anymore." Claire felt her chest tighten. "First the sabotage, now this." "I knew we'd ruffle some feathers," he said, crossing his arms. "But this is personal." Claire clenched her fists. "I've poured everything into this place. Every single day. How dare they call me a fraud?" Noel looked at her, calm but firm. "I'm going to give them exactly what they want." She blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "They want to challenge your legitimacy. Let them. We'll show them who you are." Claire folded her arms. "I trust you, but if this blows up in our faces, you're scrubbing every dish for a month." Noel grinned. "Deal." Days later, Noel announced it publicly, a live cooking event. Open to everyone, no tickets, no barriers. Just Claire and her kitchen. "Are you sure this isn't a terrible idea?" she asked, pacing. "If they want to question your skill," Noel said, "let them watch you cook." Claire looked down at her hands. Hands that had spent years chopping, stirring, building something from nothing. She took a breath. This could go really wrong, or it could go really right. When the day arrived, the restaurant overflowed. Cameras, journalists, curious foodies, skeptics, all eyes were on her. Claire's hands trembled slightly as she stepped into the kitchen. But then she heard Noel's voice, low and steady behind her. "Just do what you always do." She nodded, and then she cooked. Not to prove herself, not to impress anyone. She cooked like she always had, with love, precision, and fire in her soul. Dishes flew out one after another, flawless, comforting, radiant with flavor. When the last plate was served, there was a moment of silence before it erupted. Applause, praise, interviews. "She's the real deal. This food is phenomenal. Not a fraud, a force." Noel stood in the background, a quiet smile on his face. Claire sank into a chair, breathless. "That was the scariest thing I've ever done," Noel laughed. "And yet you made it look easy." She smiled. "It was worth it." The event changed everything. Claire's name was now everywhere. Food blogs, TV segments, her face on magazine spreads. Flavors of the Village was no longer just a restaurant, it was a movement. But that kind of spotlight? It came with shadows. One night, while the team prepared the evening service, Claire looked up from the order slips. Noel was beside her. "This is moving too fast," she said quietly. "Faster than I can breathe." "Isn't this a good thing?" Noel asked, arms crossed as he watched Claire stir a pot of yakisoba sauce. She didn't look up. "It is. But," she sighed, "something doesn't feel right, like something bad is coming." Noel let out a soft laugh. "You're being paranoid." "Maybe." She stirred a little faster. "But ever since someone tried to poison that dinner, I haven't really slept." His smile faded. "If someone's behind this, I'll find them." Claire looked up, eyes searching his. "Just be careful. Don't get too caught up in this." He gave her a small, tilted smile. Too late. That night, Noel found himself across from an old contact, Samuel Lopez, a private investigator he'd worked with before. I need a name, Noel said. Someone's trying to destroy our restaurant. Samuel raised an eyebrow. And why do you care so much? Noel hesitated, then said simply, because it's personal now. 2 days later, the phone rang. Noel, I've got your answer. He picked up immediately. Tell me. A pause, then Samuel replied, Miranda. Noel closed his eyes, of course. She couldn't handle being humiliated at the gala, Samuel continued. Now she's trying something bigger. What is she planning? A sigh. She's trying to buy the restaurant from under you. Noel sat in silence, processing. She's lost her damn mind. At the restaurant, Claire was cleaning the prep counter when he walked in, his face unusually grim. We need to talk. She froze. Every time you say that, something awful follows. He nodded. Miranda wants to buy the restaurant. Claire dropped the towel in her hands. She what? She thinks if she can't humiliate you, she'll take away the one thing that gives you power, your food. Anger burned in her chest. She's not getting this place, ever. Noel smiled, but only slightly. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. But deep down, he knew. Miranda was just getting started. The next morning, Claire got an unexpected visit. A man in a crisp black suit handed her an envelope. Miss Claire, I come with an offer. Ms. Miranda would like to purchase your restaurant. Generous terms. Claire unfolded the contract, scanned the numbers, and let out a dry laugh. Is she serious? She believes this is a fair deal. Claire calmly tore the contract in half. Tell her I'm not for sale. The man blinked. Understood. He collected the torn paper and left without another word. Minutes later, Noel arrived. What did he want? Miranda tried to buy me out. Noel tilted his head. And you? Claire raised her chin. What do you think? He laughed. You amaze me. But the battle was far from over. The next day, another hit came. This time not in person, but in headlines. Flavors of the Village shut down by health department. Sanitary violations exposed. Claire's heart stopped. She stared at the screen in disbelief. This can't be happening. Noel looked over her shoulder at the official statement. She bribed someone, he muttered. She wants us erased, Claire said, shaking with rage. Noel nodded slowly. Then we fight. Claire looked at him. War? Why? The next morning, they walked into the health inspection office together. The man behind the desk didn't even blink. Miss Claire, Mr. Noel, the restaurant is closed until further notice. Claire leaned over the counter, seething. Based on what, exactly? The inspector opened a file, voice flat. Expired ingredients. Unsanitary conditions. Evidence of pest infestation. Claire slammed her hand down. That's a lie. To be continued. Claire slammed her hand on the inspector's desk. Noel gently stepped forward, keeping his tone calm but firm. We'd like to review the evidence ourselves. The inspector sighed and slid a folder of printed photos across the table. Claire picked them up slowly, one by one, and her stomach sank. Shelves stacked with expired cans, pots coated in grime, and worst of all, a photo of a cockroach hiding in the corner of the pantry. This can't be real, she whispered. Noel took the images from her hands and studied them closely. Then he paused. These are doctored. The inspector raised an eyebrow. And how would you know that? Noel pointed to the pantry photo. This brand of spice? He said, tapping it. It was discontinued 2 years ago. You can't even buy it anymore. The inspector hesitated. Claire stood, voice rising. Someone planted this. You're being used to frame us. The man sighed, uncomfortable. A formal complaint was filed. Whether it's valid or not, protocol says the restaurant must stay closed until a new inspection. When? Claire asked. 2 weeks. Her heart sank. 2 weeks. 2 weeks without customers. 2 weeks of rumors spreading. 2 weeks for everything they'd built to unravel. Noel clenched his jaw. This isn't just bad luck. It's Miranda. Claire looked at him. Then something shifted behind her eyes. A flicker of an idea. If we can't open the doors, she said slowly, then let's take the food to them. The next morning, the kitchen roared to life, despite the locked front doors. Claire stood over the stove. If they won't let us serve, we'll deliver. Noel grinned. I love this version of you. The team mobilized quickly. A makeshift delivery line, takeout containers stacked high. Claire and the staff worked with sharp precision. Let's put this online, she said, grabbing her phone. Noel was already typing. Our doors may be closed, but our hearts and our kitchen are still open. Flavors of the Village is coming to you. Order now. The post went viral within the hour. You think this will work? Claire asked, biting her lip. Noel smirked. You doubt me? Always. Then get ready to be surprised. And surprised she was. Orders flooded in, faster than they could box them. The kitchen became beautiful chaos. Claire dashed between stations. Staff shouted above the hum of printers and the sizzle of pans. "We're drowning in tickets," one cook cried. "That's not a problem," Claire shouted back, laughing. "That's a blessing." But Miranda wasn't done. That night, another headline appeared. "Shut down restaurant caught operating illegally." Claire stared at the headline in disbelief. This woman is obsessed. Noel took her phone and calmly called Samuel. "I need to know how Miranda is getting this intel. She's inside our walls." Claire crossed her arms. "She has someone watching us." Noel nodded. "Then we're gonna find them." The very next morning, the answer came. One of their staff was caught in the storage room, snapping photos on his phone. Claire stormed in. "What do you think you're doing?" The young man froze, pale. Noel stepped in, took the phone from his hands, and scrolled through the messages. Screenshots, notes, and texts. To Miranda. "Gotcha," Noel muttered. The man tried to run, but Noel blocked the exit. "You can explain here, or we take it to the police." The employee hesitated, then crumbled. "She paid me. Miranda paid me to report everything. She wanted to ruin the delivery launch and make sure you couldn't recover." Claire stood in the doorway, fists clenched, fury coursing through her veins, but beneath it, hurt. "You looked me in the eye," she said, voice trembling. "You cooked beside me." The man looked down, ashamed, but Claire didn't lose herself to anger. Instead, she turned to Noel. "We don't back down." He met her gaze. "Never." Noel stared hard at the man in front of him. "Get your things and get out." Without a word, the traitor bolted, shame trailing behind him like smoke. Claire turned to Noel, her voice low but resolute. "This means Miranda already knows we're not backing down." He nodded. "Good, let's stop playing defense." Noel picked up his phone and dialed. "Samuel, I need a favor." "Name it," came the voice on the other end. Noel's eyes narrowed. "It's time the world sees Miranda for who she really is." The very next morning, a headline exploded across the internet. "Socialite caught sabotaging rival restaurant. Bribes, blackmail, and betrayal uncovered." The article exposed it all. Leaked messages, suspicious transactions, photos, records. Miranda had played dirty. And now the mask was off. By midday, Claire and Noel were summoned to the regulatory agency. Inside, the inspector set down the updated file and looked up. "With this new evidence, we're officially lifting the closure." Claire blinked. "You mean we can reopen?" The inspector smiled warmly. "Yes, effective immediately." Claire turned to Noel, and before she could stop herself, she threw her arms around him. He froze for just a second, then wrapped her in an embrace just as tight. "We did it," she whispered. That night, the restaurant glowed. Flavors of the Village reopened to a line that wrapped around the block. Old customers, new faces, people who had followed every twist of the story and now wanted a taste of victory. Claire stood at the kitchen pass, watching it all with shining eyes. "This can't be real," she murmured. Noel, standing beside her with hands in his pockets, replied softly, "It's not luck, it's your work, your courage." She looked up at him. He held her gaze for just a moment, and the kitchen noise fell away. Then she laughed nervously. "Don't think this means you get to eat for free." Noel grinned. "You really are impossible." But deep down, he knew the truth. He was completely, hopelessly, wonderfully in love with her. The reopening was a triumph. Inside the kitchen, Claire worked with her usual precision, but this time with a joy that radiated in every movement. Outside, the dining room buzzed with laughter, clinking glasses, and the kind of warmth that couldn't be bought. Noel, meanwhile, watched it all from afar, silent, thoughtful. "He's acting strange," one of the cooks whispered. "Maybe he's in love with the boss," another teased. "Or maybe he was planning something," and he was. That evening, after the last table was cleared and the kitchen lights dimmed, Claire stayed behind to clean the counters. She didn't notice Noel walk in until he was right behind her. "We need to talk," he said. She turned, raising an eyebrow. "If this is another investment idea, can I say no now or later?" He chuckled, folding his arms. "Not business this time." She dried her hands, leaning back against the marble. "Okay, so what is it?" Noel took a breath. "I want to take you to dinner." Claire blinked. "Dinner? Like outside the restaurant?" "Yes." She eyed him suspiciously. "You've never asked me to dinner before." "There's always a first." There was something in his voice, steady, clear, a little vulnerable. She looked at him a moment longer, and then, okay. They went to one of the city's most elegant restaurants. Claire shifted in her seat, glancing around at the glittering walls and polished cutlery. I feel like I'm being judged. Noel smiled. You are. But ignore it. She rolled her eyes. Easy for you to say. You were born into this. He tilted his head. And where would you rather be? She thought for a moment, then replied softly, somewhere simple. Where I can wear clothes with flour on them, and no one cares. Her hands still carried the scent of spices. Noel glanced over at Claire, the candlelight playing gently across her face. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, softly, you know, that's something I admire about you. Claire blinked. What? You never try to become someone you're not. You don't chase approval. You just show up as yourself. Her cheeks flushed, the kind of warmth that rises unexpectedly. If that was meant to be a compliment, I'm writing it down. They don't come often from you. Noel smirked and raised his glass. Then you better get more pages ready. I'm just getting started. Claire laughed nervously, but inside her heart beat faster than it should have. Why was he saying these things? And worse, why did they feel like the truth she had been too afraid to admit? Dinner unfolded like a memory waiting to be cherished. They spoke as if time didn't exist, as if this wasn't the most unexpected turn in both their lives. But the magic shattered the moment they stepped outside. A sudden storm, not of rain but of flashbulbs. Across the street, a line of reporters waited, their voices loud, questions sharper than any blade. Mr. Hart, is this your new girlfriend? Claire, how does it feel to be the chosen one? Are you abandoning high society for a girl from the countryside? Claire froze. Noel didn't. He placed a protective hand at her waist and led her swiftly to the car. Don't listen, he murmured. But how could she not? By morning, the internet had erupted. Billionaire Noel Hart spotted on romantic dinner with local chef. Claire's phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from clients, acquaintances, even strangers. Is it true? Are you together? OMG, you're living the dream. She tossed the phone on the counter and buried her face in her hands. This is a disaster. And then the phone rang. She answered instinctively. Claire? It was her grandmother. Claire swallowed. I can explain. Are you dating that man? No. I mean, yes, but not like that. It's not what it looks like. Then what is it, sweetheart? Claire didn't have an answer. Not then. Not even when someone knocked at the door. It was Noel. Of course it was. He stood there, arms folded, looking both apologetic and stubborn. You saw the news? She groaned. Saw it? My phone's melting. My grandma might disown me. He gave a breath of a laugh, then grew quiet. I'm sorry. For ruining my reputation, she said, half joking. He looked her in the eye. For making you question your heart. She stilled. What are you talking about? Noel stepped closer. I like you, Claire. I've liked you for a while, and I think you feel it too. She couldn't find the words. The walls she'd built felt like paper. You don't have to say anything now, he added gently. Just don't run from it. And with that, he left, leaving her alone with the chaos inside her. That night, sleep wouldn't come. She stared at the ceiling, tossed and turned, her heart a swirl of questions she couldn't answer. Why did he always see past her walls? Why did his words stay with her longer than they should? Why did the thought of losing him terrify her more than falling for him? Maybe she didn't want to admit it? Or maybe she was already in love. The next morning, Claire showed up at the restaurant earlier than usual, trying to drown the noise and routine. She needed control, predictability, anything that wasn't him. But fate wasn't done. On the counter, waiting silently, was a white envelope. Her name written on it, in Noel's handwriting. Hands trembling, she opened it. Don't run. We need to talk. I'll be waiting. 7 p.m. Grand Imperial Hotel. Claire read the note again, heart fluttering. Noel, Grand Imperial, 7 p.m. Don't run. What did he want? And more importantly, did she want to know? The days slipped by faster than she expected. Before she could make up her mind, the clock told her what her heart had already decided. She was going. At exactly 7 p.m., Claire stepped into the grand, echoing lobby of the Imperial Hotel. Everything felt too elegant, too polished, like a world built for someone else. But then she saw him. Noel stood by a private table, dressed in a charcoal suit, his expression composed, and yet, somehow, quietly uncertain. Claire took a slow breath and walked toward him. You came, he said, his voice low. Still not sure if it was a mistake, she replied, arms crossed. He smiled gently. Sit down. Let's find out. The waiter poured 2 glasses of wine. Claire noticed something unusual. Noel looked nervous, which was rare. What is it? She asked softly. He took a sip, then set the glass down. I want to make you an offer. She narrowed her eyes. If this is another business proposal. It's not. He looked directly at her. Claire, I want to be with you. Time stopped. She blinked. What? I like you. I have for a long time, and I'm tired of pretending that I don't. Her heart pounded. This doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense, he replied. You changed everything. And I don't care where you came from or what anyone thinks. All I care about is you. Claire wanted to believe him, wanted to fall into the warmth of his words, but fear crept in. I'm not like the women in your world, Noel. I don't know how to exist there. He reached across the table and gently took her hand. Good, because I'm not asking you to become anything but who you already are. Her eyes stung. You can't promise that. Then let me prove it. Silence hung between them, until Claire leaned forward, cupped his face, and kissed him. And in that one kiss, the doubts fell away. The days that followed felt like a dream. News outlets went wild, headlines speculated, gossip swirled. But none of it mattered, because Claire had never felt more alive, or more herself, than by Noel's side. Months later, he took her out for dinner, one quieter than the others, more intimate, more charged, and when the clock struck midnight, he knelt beside her, velvet box in hand. Marry me, Claire gasped. Noel? I know this wasn't your plan, he said, eyes full of light, but I can't imagine a single day of my life without you in it. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I love you, Claire. All of you. Will you spend the rest of your life with me? She laughed through the tears and whispered the word that changed everything. Yes. The wedding wasn't grand. It wasn't meant to be. It was real. Held in the backyard garden of Claire's childhood home, beneath strings of soft lights and trees heavy with blossoms, it was exactly what they both needed. No gold-plated menus, no aristocratic pretenses. Just love and home. Claire wore a lace dress her grandmother had altered by hand. Her hair, loose and gentle, held tiny flowers from the field. Noel, ever the tailored man, wore a suit, but skipped the tie. He wanted to belong to her world, just as she had opened herself to his. And as they said their vows under the setting sun, surrounded by neighbors, family, and the smell of fresh bread and laughter, it was clear to everyone watching. They didn't just fall in love. They built it. Together. It was a wedding like no other. There were no marble halls, no champagne towers, no distant guests in tailored suits making polite conversation. But there was heart, and it was perfect. Everyone from the village came. Neighbors brought homemade cakes. Children ran between the tables barefoot. Lanterns swayed gently from the trees. The sky turned gold. Claire's grandmother wept more than she ever had. Not out of sadness, but from something deeper. A kind of joy that comes when you realize your child has found someone who truly sees her. Applause burst when Claire and Noel said their vows. The words weren't memorized or polished, but they were real. And that's what mattered most. Later at the reception, Claire watched Noel from across the garden. He wasn't the same man she met at that ridiculous gala months ago. There, he was a distant billionaire, a name in headlines, an untouchable life. Here, he was simply hers. He laughed with the villagers like he had always belonged, balanced a paper plate piled with yakisoba she had made that morning, even wiped a bit of sauce off a kid's nose with the corner of his napkin. Claire's heart swelled. She never imagined a life like this, but maybe life, when it's honest, rarely follows the script. And as she watched him lean down to help her grandmother carry a tray, she knew he wasn't just visiting her world, he'd chosen to live in it. As the sun dipped behind the hills and friends gathered to toss rice over the newlyweds, Noel reached for Claire's hand and gently whispered, "You're mine now, forever." She smiled, eyes twinkling. "Hope you're ready for a lifetime of burnt cookies and spicy sauce debates." He laughed. "Bring it on." And then he kissed her. Not like a billionaire, not like a fairy tale, just like a man in love with the woman who changed his world. If this story found its way into your heart, let us know. How would you rate Claire and Noel's journey? And don't forget, every love story is different, but the truest ones are made not from grand gestures, but from choosing each other, again and again, in the smallest, simplest ways. Stay with us for more stories that warm the soul. And remember, Sometimes, the most beautiful things grow in the most unexpected places.